From the Weston A. Price Foundation, welcome to the Wise Traditions podcast for wise traditions in food, farming, and the healing arts. We are your source for scientific knowledge and traditional wisdom to help you achieve optimal health. And now here is our host and producer, Hilda Labrada Gore.
Hey, Hilda here. Sickness is common, but it's not normal. Our guest today suggests that vaccines, pharmaceutical drugs, and toxins in our food system have contributed to the chronic conditions that many millennials and Gen Zers are experiencing. She says that they've been, in effect, experimented on without their consent. Is this hyperbole, or is it based on facts about what is actually happening to young people before our very eyes? This is episode 528, and our guest today is Alex Clark. Alex is the host and creator of Culture Apothecary with Alex Clark, a top 10 worldwide health and wellness podcast, where she interviews experts on healing a sick culture, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Alex is an advocate for healthcare reform and food freedom in America today. Today, Alex offers insights on where her passion originated, what has led her to be so outspoken about health issues, why she changed her podcast from one focused primarily on politics and pop culture to one centered around health concerns. Alex spills it all out today. She shares her own personal health wake-up call, the first thing that she changed when she realized that most food was pseudo-food, what has surprised her the most since she rebranded her podcast, and how her family has responded to her shifts from the chicken nugget queen, which she was once known as, to crunchy and loving it. She also explains why she is so very determined to suss out what factors are accountable for her health challenges and the poor health of her peers. And she's calling for change. This is the first episode in our young adult series this spring. We are hearing from young people themselves and addressing topics that are relevant especially to them. Before we get into the conversation, I want to invite you to the Wise Traditions Conference. It's happening in Salt Lake City, Utah this October, the 17th to the 19th in Salt Lake City. We can't wait. It's a conference that nourishes in every way. As you'll hear on this podcast, Alex and I connected at the last conference. Who knows who you'll meet at this next one? We will hear from amazing speakers, eat Wise Traditions-friendly food, and get to connect with friends around the table and in the hallways. It's going to be amazing. Go to wisetraditions.org for more information and to sign up today. This is Hilda Labrada Gore, and you're listening to Wise Traditions. Welcome to Wise Traditions, Alex.
I cannot believe I'm here. I am like your biggest fan. So the whole reason really I think I've fallen into a lot of this is because of you. So this is so weird to be in the seat.
It's so funny. Oh my gosh. And you used to be the chicken nugget girl. Tell me about your radio DJ days when you were known as the girl that loved chicken nuggets.
That's all I ate, Hilda. I was living off fast food. Every meal, I only was making ultra-processed food. I had no idea how to cook. I had no idea how to bake until the pandemic. I was living this way, never thought anything about our food. You know, could there be chemicals of war in our food? Never in a million years would I have thought of something like that. I would have thought that was absurd and laughed. In fact, I had one grandparent growing up who was very into all things organic and always talking about pesticides and preservatives and all these things. And I remember being a kid even just being like, oh my gosh, would you stop with the organic food? I just did not grow up that way, and that was so foreign to me, and I just almost thought it was laughable, made up, kind of woo-woo, fake science stuff.
Yeah.
And so in the pandemic, you know, they're mandating this vaccine. I thought that was strange. And by the way, no secret, I'm very openly conservative politically. Mm-hmm. So to me, I had already made so many connections in my life between corruption in mainstream media, corruption in big tech, education system. All of these things made sense to me. I just had never thought of pharma in food. And so when they start mandating this vaccine for everybody to take in order to participate in public life, I thought, how evil is this? This doesn't make any sense. What's in it for them? What are they gaining? And at that time, not only are they mandating the vaccine, but they had just come out with this show called Dope Sick on Hulu.
I think I remember hearing about that, Dope Sick. What was it about?
It's incredible. It's all about the opioid crisis.
Oh.
It was a drama starring Michael Keaton, and he was playing, it's all based on a true story of Purdue Pharma, and he's playing a doctor which is based on a real person from Tennessee who ended up prescribing OxyContin and then got addicted himself. And how, the pharmaceutical reps were making buku bucks and everybody was getting rich as they knew. They had years and years and years ahead of time, they knew that this drug was in fact addictive, even though they were saying it wasn't, and was just ravaging American towns, right? And so I thought, oh my gosh, is this something that could ever happen again, where the pharma industry knows that something is harmful, but they're telling American citizens it's safe? Has it happened before? And so that led me to hormonal birth control.
Oh, and you were on birth control for like 10 years, right?
Yeah, I had been prescribed for no reason. I couldn't even tell you why. I think I might have just said, oh yeah, my cramps hurt, and bada boom, bada bing, in a 10-minute wellness checkup, my pediatrician puts me on birth control at 14 or 15.
No.
And it wasn't until my late 20s that I got off. I'm 31 now, so almost most of my adult life I've been on hormonal birth control. So I was told it's too complicated as a woman to understand how your cycle works. Tracking your cycle is too hard. In health class, we were never told anything about that. I didn't even know until the last couple years that we had different phases to our cycle.
Wow.
I'd never even heard that before. So there were so many things that you have to understand the time that we're in. American students, American public school students especially, I mean, they're not even learning reading and writing. They're definitely not learning anything about their food, their bodies. And that was something too, is that the food pyramid, I realized as I started looking into all of this, with the food and the pharma, I realized wait a minute, the food pyramid, which I vividly remember, that was the one health lesson I got, was this food pyramid, and how the whole thing was a sham.
Yes.
I couldn't even believe it. And of course, which you've talked about in your own testimony, that in the 90s, you were going through that fat-free craze and all of that kind of stuff, and focusing totally on physical health. That is all I knew when it came to health. It was move your body, move your
Absolutely.
body. Michelle Obama, Let's Move campaign.
Yep,
That's
yep.
all I knew.
That's all I did too, yep.
And I definitely had heard fat is bad and all this. It was a relearning. In the pandemic, it was a relearning, not only for me, but I think I can speak on behalf of a lot of conservative Americans. Your audience is different. You might have a lot of crunchy cons. I like to say crunchy conservatives. But for me, this is so new. I didn't know any conservatives who cared about health till I got totally health pilled, I'll call it. And then I started bringing my audience along with me, and all of our lives are forever changed.
All right, Alex. So you have your show now, Culture Apothecary, where you focus on well-being, which is such a shift from pop culture, which is what you were about before. And you always ask tough questions, so I'm going to ask you a tough question now. Do you think the focus on pop culture distracts people from thinking about their health in the first place?
Oh, that is a tough question, because I love pop culture. I love celebrity news. But every time I talk about Taylor Swift, my audience gets very mad, and they say that. They said, this is a distraction. Who cares? Yes, of course, there is some distractive elements to keep us from talking about real issues. I would say even a lot of political news, the stuff that they throw out and say, this is important, this is what we need to focus on politically, is a distraction from some of the stuff that is arguably more important. I mean, I just testified at the Senate.
Yeah.
And it was with Senator Ron Johnson, and it was a nonpartisan panel. He happens to be conservative, but we had RFK Jr., and there was a bunch of people on this panel. Jillian Michaels has never voted conservative before. I don't know what's going on in this election cycle, but for a lot of these people, they have been lifelong Democrats or whatever, but we all come together and agree on the food issue and the chronic disease issue. And so this panel was to really educate the Hill about the chronic disease problem that's happening in our country, and especially with our children. And it was supposed to be, like, look, this is something that is nonpartisan that all Americans should agree on. With the panel, when we're talking about distractions, okay, when there's something that is arguably more important than other things, you might see people trying to distract you even within this realm. So what happened was we do this panel, and then the Atlantic comes out with a piece called the Woo Woo Caucus.
I think I saw that.
And they were making fun of us, and they were saying that we want to make Fruit Loops boring again. Like, how dare we take out chemicals that we know cause cancer and that we know affect behavior in children negatively? Why would we take those out? We're just making Fruit Loops boring by doing that.
I can't believe they said that.
They said that. They said, I've got raw milk extremism, and this has been written about me 50 times now. So the point is that, yeah, I think as soon as you start seeing that opposition, those oppositional pieces coming out that are trying to, like, all these people are piling on saying, you crazy right-wing extremists promoting raw milk, you're trying to make Fruit Loops boring and all this. You have to ask the question, why do they want to suppress this information so much? Why are they trying to, everybody all at once saying that this is crazy, that RFK Jr. is a quack? I think that's a valid, question to ask. So yeah, there's definitely distractions when it comes to things that are actually important. Sometimes, I'm obviously into politics, but sometimes the stuff that we bicker about on a day-to-day basis, even in the conservative movement, I'm like, I see all the data with all this health stuff, and I'm like, it's not even comparable. This is way more, the health problem is way more of a pressing issue.
And that's why you shifted your show, I think, because you experienced it yourself. You had the issues from being on birth control for 10 years. I understand you struggled with some depression and you were on some SSRIs. And then you've also had Hashimoto's. But you are not the exception, Alex, right? A lot of your generation is sick.
Most of my generation is sick. And what's interesting and very sad is that most don't even know that they are sick, Hilda, because what we are told is that it is normal. I didn't realize until the last year and a half, 2 years, that being absolutely dog tired in your late 20s is not normal. I thought that was just a way of life, that you're absolutely crashing, can barely keep your eyes open or anything by like 2 p.m. every day. I didn't know that it's not normal to have excruciating painful periods or severe PMS symptoms. Had no idea. It's common, but it isn't normal. And that is the problem. Because we have gotten to this point in America where we're so sick that all of these symptoms are becoming so common, it's been easy for pharma to totally medicalize this and say, oh, look, it's all so common. So guess what? We have a pill for that. Yeah. We have an injection for that. We have a shot for that. That is a very sad state of affairs, that when I'm talking about this and starting to bring up some of these things, my audience members are saying, oh, well, I had no idea that my hair being so unbelievably thin or falling out was a red flag, dry eye, all these. Everybody just gives me a prescription, but nobody takes the time to talk to me about it. So we've just got a huge, a massively uneducated generation on this health stuff.
Yeah, and I feel like what you're bringing is bringing it to light. What helped you, Alex, avoid going for the easy fix? Well, I guess you did go for it for a little while, right? The antidepressants that you took and so forth. What helped you shift to look to real food for answers and to alternative healing modalities?
Oh, the real food stuff, I owe all to you. And actually, as I was going through deep dives, what I was searching for was, I think I had seen one side comment somewhere about baby formula and how there's a lot of things in baby formula that we shouldn't have. And so what I did was I was searching in the Apple podcast. I was just typing in baby formula and looking for episodes that were talking about problems with baby formula. And your interview with Sally came up. And that was the first time I'd listened to your show. And I listened, and then I was like, oh my gosh, this is addictive. The show's so good and it's short, and I learned so much information. Who is this woman? I loved your voice. I told you that when you came on my show for the first time. I was like, I'm obsessed with your voice as a podcaster. And so I just started binging. I remember that night I must have listened to 6 or 7 episodes as I was making dinner, cleaning my room, getting ready for bed. I didn't even want to go to bed that night because I had listened to so many of your episodes in a row, and then I couldn't wait to get in the car to drive to work the next morning to listen to more. And so I just listened. I had never heard of the Weston A Price Foundation before. I had no idea what an ancestral diet was. I had no idea about the benefits of organ meats. And I was so excited to hear that there was a other side to this, that life didn't have to be this way, and that food is really a medicine and it can be a tool for so much good, and that for so many of the answers that I was seeking for medications, I really could find a food that could help heal that. And so I was so radicalized. I felt like I like fully was immersed in all things holistic Hilda and Weston A. Price, and I was just ecstatic.
That's so beautiful. I love hearing that story. Though I have to say, I'm a little embarrassed that you listened to the early episodes where the music was weird and I sounded like I was talking and recording in a bathroom, but I was doing the best I could.
But you know what's so cool is that, and I know this too with my own show and evolution of getting better technology and everything, when you are sharing truth, people do not care how they're getting it. They are so excited to hear it for the first time. So for me, it was just this water hose I couldn't turn off. I had to drink more and more and more. And you could have been, in a talking through a tin can, I would have listened, or a walkie-talkie podcast, I would have listened, because I wasn't hearing that truth from anyone else.
Oh my gosh, that's such a beautiful testimonial. I'm so happy to hear it. And I want to ask you, because I like to get practical with the listener, like what was one of the first shifts you made food-wise since you started listening?
Corey Dunn just asked me this on her show, and nobody likes this answer. So a personality trait of mine is that once I'm all in on something, I am all in. So in a night, I had thrown out every single item in my pantry that had seed oils, and I think that might have been where I started, was that I got rid of the seed oils first, then I learned about artificial dyes and natural flavors. And so, you start to learn more and more about ingredients, and what I thought was good may not be, and all that. But I think definitely with seed oils, I basically got rid of all processed food. I went to all I knew at the time was go to the store. So I went to the store, I got everything organic, grass-fed meat, all of these different things, and then just started with the basics, which really I'm still on. Everybody thinks I'm making these like elaborate, complicated meals. I'm like, it couldn't be more boring. It's just protein of some sort. So that's, it could be wild-caught salmon. It could be a local pork chop. It could be grass-fed beef, whatever, making hamburger patties. And then, one or two vegetable sides could be potatoes and asparagus, or
Totally.
green beans and carrots, and I'll do something fun like a cinnamon brown sugar honey glaze, or I don't know what, but I'll do a little of that sometimes. But it really is keeping it simple. And that was something too that I learned new from the Weston A. Price Foundation, was that true health doesn't have to be complicated. To make healthier choices or swaps, it really is simple, like get sunlight, which I really struggle on and am working on. Get sunlight, eat real food, sleep, like things like that. It's like, oh, it's really that easy? Yeah, it's really that easy. I think my audience gets very, very emotional over my episodes sometimes, where they feel like all of these swaps are impossible, or now I need to buy this device or try this because one of my guests says they like it or they use it, or this pot and pan set or whatever. And they're like, well, this is costing so much money. And I'm like, these are extras. This isn't a requirement to be healthy. All you need to do is go outside. All you need to do is just eat real food, just, milk and meat and vegetables and fruit. It's that you can make it as complicated as you want. I've got all these cool devices and gadgets and things because I think that's fun for me and I enjoy it. But if that isn't you, then it's not you. And I think you are the one that has said it's not, maybe I'm making this up, but I thought it was you, have said it's not wellness if it's making you miserable.
No, that wasn't me, but I like that.
Yeah.
It's not wellness if it's making you miserable.
Yeah. So and everybody is different. So also I have different things going on than you do. Like I have an autoimmune disease. My hormones are a total wreck right now that I'm trying to build them back after 10 years on birth control. So there's a lot of things that I am doing for my wellness and health that might be detrimental to you or someone else. So, people like to know, like, what supplements are you taking? What are you eating? What are you doing? It is really individual, and you have to start in what's best for you. Now, I could say, I think you would say, there are some basic tips that I would say, yes, everyone switch to stainless steel or cast iron pans and glass. Stop using nonstick. Everybody should at least make that switch.
Yes.
But as far as, all these other crazy devices and masks and whatever, you don't have to do those things.
Right. No, that's so good. I love it. Start with the simple steps. And simplicity is gourmet. You know, the simplest meal can be nourishing when it's with the best ingredients you can find. Know your farmer, all those good things.
Yeah, you know, today we're at the Wise Traditions Conference, and today you guys served Oregon meatloaf and mashed potatoes, and that is all I had. And I feel so good right now and so full. And I'm not even thinking about food or next meal or anything. I feel so good. I have so much energy, you know, and that has to do with having real food and a nourishing meal. And it was only 2 things. It was this meatloaf and you guys had other stuff, but that's all I had, and I feel great.
So what I'm happy to know, Alex, is that you have this influence, right? And there's so many people turning to you, and you've interviewed so many people about breast implants, about birth control, about even the vaccination schedule for children and babies. Like, it's amazing. What nugget do you think you've pulled out of that has been the most surprising, or one of the most surprising?
Well, I certainly didn't know, and I ended up including this in my Senate speech. I mean, I had no idea that in one visit, you think your child is getting one shot, an individual injection, and there's really multiple in there that you're getting mixed, you know, multiple in one session. Because when I started talking about how the childhood vaccine schedule recently is upwards of 70 shots
That's
now.
right.
A lot of my audience is in disbelief. You're making this up. That's not true. I'm obviously at every single visit with my child, they're getting one shot at a time. And I said, and you know, I tell them, look, I am telling you in love, there's multiple vaccines in there. Wow. And they don't even know. So I didn't know that either until recently. I didn't know that most of our brain today is coated in plastic. That is a terrifying statistic. That was from Dr. Chris Palmer. He testified at the Senate hearing with me, and he has a fascinating stuff on all things the brain. That was a very scary stat. You know, and just learning that most of the food today in the grocery store isn't even food. When I heard that, I had to really sit with that for a minute.
Right.
The grocery store is not food. Most Americans don't know that.
No, they think that's the grocery store. But interestingly, why is there a pharmacy section? Like, why is it food and drugs? It's because the food isn't really food, and it takes us to pop pills.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, they have to, if they're prescribing bullets, then they have to have the Band-Aids there as well.
Yeah, good point. So you're not a mom yet, Alex. Why do you care so much about the children and what's happening with the babies, for example?
A couple reasons. One, I think biblically as women, we are all called to care for children. It may be your biological children, it might be children in your community, but I do believe that is our duty as women to care for the least of these. The other thing is, I could not sit well with myself if the main purpose of my podcast and all of this attention that I'm getting and, you know, notoriety was for my own interest, for it was all just glory for me. That is a legacy that makes me sick. I have to know that I am doing something that is going to make a difference to preserve this amazing, great country that we live in. And I realized that all of the political activism that I do, all of these other topics that I care deeply about, don't even matter at the end of the day if we're all too sick or dead to be able to even vote on them. There is no America if we're all sick and dead. So we have to fix that first so that then we can work to fix all of these other things. And I also realize that all of this information that we're sharing to Americans about, you know, trying to red pill them on all these conservative issues, because I'm coming from a conservative perspective, none of it matters if everybody is too riddled with brain fog and can't even critically think because of the food that they're eating and then the pills that they're all hopped up on. I had no idea that it wasn't normal to not think clearly. I just thought, you don't even know the difference till you start making these changes, and then you really feel that and you notice it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So that was the other thing too, is I thought all of this information that I'm sharing with people, it doesn't even matter. They can't even receive it because their brains are not even working to full capacity.
Yeah. To what extent do you think our fast-paced social media, TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat is affecting our capacity to focus? What do you think?
Oh, well, we already know that. I mean, it's completely killing our attention span. I mean, and in order to keep up, even me, like clips of my podcast, I do a certain style that I know is going to be like the most attention getting, whatever, so that somebody won't scroll past it. It's very frustrating. I am so much more at peace when I do have a few hours, and that's so pathetic to say, but even if I get a few hours that I can be without my phone on a weekend because I'm distracted, I'm with friends, I'm at an event, I feel so unbelievably recharged. I have a lot of hope, and I'm loving seeing there's a lot of, and they're all private schools that are doing this. No public schools are, but there's several private schools now across the country that are having a no phone policy.
Yes.
And you see these kids walking around. It's like, this is so dumb to say, but it's like, oh my gosh, everybody looks like they're in a movie from the 80s or the 90s because they're like actually talking and smiling and not just looking down. And I'm like, oh, this is so beautiful. And I love what Jonathan Haidt has talked about. I don't know if you've ever interviewed him, but he has an amazing book walking through like this anxious generation and kids being addicted to phones and how to stop it, and talking about how like all parents need to commit to being a no phone family till like a certain age, and how different childhood would be. We could restore childhood again.
Coming up, Alex talks about brain fog and how it's like living in black and white, and what can help you get back into living in full color.
You're listening to the Wise Traditions podcast from the Weston A. Foundation. We pause now to recognize our sponsors.
Grey Toad Tallow. At Grey Toad Tallow, they believe that truly nourishing skincare begins with the finest ingredients. That's why their top priority is to source only the best 100% pastured tallow from organically raised animals. The result is a clean product with just a few ingredients, reminiscent of what past generations relied on for healthy skin. At Grey Toad Tallow, they also strive to keep their wholesome products affordable, making them more accessible for those seeking natural skincare solutions. And hey, they know life is busy, so why don't we let Grey Toad Tallow do the work for us? They transform suet into a tallow balm that your skin will love. Cherished for generations, tallow naturally offers a perfect blend of fats and vitamins to keep your skin healthy, hydrated, and radiant. So go to greytoadtallow.com today to explore their full range of products designed to nurture your skin from head to toe. And use the code WISE10 at checkout to save 10% on your order. Again, that's greytoadtallow.com today to explore their full range of products designed to nurture your skin from head to toe. And use the code WISE10 at checkout to save 10% on your order. And experience the difference that Grey Toad Tallow can make. And One Earth Health. Are you feeling run down, struggling with focus, joint pain, or a weak immune system? You might be missing something crucial. Real nutrient-dense organ meats. This is where One Earth Health comes in. Their 100% New Zealand grass-fed beef organs are the most potent you'll find anywhere. And why? Because New Zealand has the highest farming standards in the world, producing organ meats with superior vitamins and minerals. One of their customers noticed that her joints felt stronger. She could climb the stairs with ease again. Her husband? He had better digestion. And their son? He finally had the focus to power through his homework. If you want more energy, stronger joints, and sharper focus, give One Earth Health beef organs a try. Go to oneearthhealth.com and for a limited time, use the code WISE10 for 10% off your order. Again, that's oneearthhealth.com and for a limited time, use the code WISE10 for 10% off your order. Fuel your body the way nature intended. One Earth Health, because quality matters. This is Hilda Labrada Gore, and you're listening to Wise Traditions. But I did want to ask you also about brain fog. You said you experienced it. How is it exhibited in your friends? Because I don't even know if I've ever had it, but I do think it's probably plaguing the younger generation more. Is it just kind of like you're working in slow motion? What does it feel like? What do you notice with your friends? Like they don't remember where they put their keys? I have noticed some of these things with younger people sometimes, and I'm like, wait, they're not that old. They shouldn't be that forgetful at this juncture.
Yeah, well, and I do struggle with the memory stuff. But I would say, yeah, until you change your diet or you get off these medications, you don't realize that you are living in slow motion. It's also not, I explain it as like living in color. Kids today especially, because the kids are just as over-medicated as the adults, they're all living in a world without color. They don't see things as clear. They don't hear things as clear. They're not experiencing life to its fullest. It's a dulled sense of reality. It's harder to understand new things and learn. It's harder to remember information that you're getting. It's hard to pay attention to people. And life was meant to be lived like that in full color, which I think you embody so perfectly. You're such an inspiration, the way that you live life. And these kids that are being put on ADHD meds in elementary school, those kids now are the guys that I'm trying to date, and they have been medicalized since they were children. And I can't express to you the pipeline this causes. They're on these meds. It affects everything. It affects sexual function, your willingness to just be social, enthusiasm for life, a zest for life. Everything is dull. It's just so sad. It's like black and white television versus color.
You know, and I sometimes can see it in a young 20-something, 30-something's eyes where I feel like it's almost like this zombification. Like,
well, you're not imagining it. It's because they are all on Lexapro.
Wow.
That's why young teenage girls today, it's a joke to call themselves Lexa hoes.
Wow.
It's a joke. So they are all being medicalized, and they don't realize that they don't need it. They're all being prescribed it first doctor's office where they just say, I have anxiety. That's the other thing. Kids today, they don't use the word sad. They use the word depressed.
Wow.
It has become, because of social media, the normal discourse to talk about your feelings, and I'm happy or I'm depressed. Not happy, sad. And that emotion and a full range of emotion is actually a bad thing, kids are told today. That we're all supposed to be at a standstill, that there should never be ups and downs. This is a normal part of life, is having emotions. You should experience things like anger and sadness and grief and extreme joy and enthusiasm and excitement. These kids are living on autopilot where not only are they never sad, which a lot of parents think that's good. I don't want my kid to be sad. This is a problem with the millennial generation parenting, which I could go into. And I'm not a parent, but I see it. And I mean, all my friends are. And so, yeah, I understand. But this is a problem, is that we have been told that it's a bad thing for a kid to ever be sad. So the cost of that was that these kids are never experiencing true happiness either. You are just at a standstill. You are just on cruise control throughout your entire life. And so what you're experiencing is that, at least for me as the girl, guys with dating and everything, it's like, I don't know, I just don't feel anything. I don't ever really feel anything, or I don't feel passionate about anything. That is a red flag that something severely not right is going on with you.
Is this the guy who just wants to play video games and he's 20-something or 30-something?
It's that, but it's also the guys that they even have high-powered jobs and they're going to the office every day, but they still say the same thing. I don't know.
They're kind of flat.
Yes.
Wow.
And that didn't used to be the case. We used to have men and kids even that were taking risks. Now everybody plays it too safe. We really, really over padded, over safetified. I don't know, that's not a word, but it's the over wussification of America.
I've never heard that phrase before, but it makes sense. And what's nice is that right now, that doesn't need to continue. I don't know about you, but I can feel this huge momentum from when you guys did the Senate hearing to, the fact that you've rebranded your podcast to the fact that the Weston A. Price Foundation continues to chug along. And I see growth in interest in national and international conversations about health and wellness. It's exciting, right?
It's so exciting. I'm telling you right now that things are changing. The conversation of health in America, all of a sudden, it's at the forefront of public discourse. And I don't know when this, is this coming out before or after the election?
After the election.
Okay. Health now, because of the election, is the top of mind when it comes to the public discourse. So more than ever, people have at least heard there's something not right, and they are kind of curious. Even if they're not fully bought in, people are curious.
Yes.
My dad is a really good example. So my dad has glioblastoma, brain cancer. He has type 2 diabetes. He's had 2 heart attacks. He's just so sick, and he's only 56.
Oh my gosh.
He's so sick, and he's only 56. But he has been really resistant to the things I've been saying, but at a certain point when it's not only your daughter talking about it, you have, presidential candidates talking about it. You have like every single major interview on mainstream news and et cetera. Everyone is covering this issue. There's, marches at Kellogg's and all this stuff to remove food dyes. There comes a point where people are like, okay, so maybe it's not all like crazy woo-woo stuff, as the Atlantic would like to say. There has to be something actually wrong for this many people to agree. So at first, I think for my dad, it was like, this is my daughter, this is my baby. She doesn't have her MD. What does she know about any of this? Mm-hmm. She also lived off chicken nuggets and is a very picky eater. He knows that about me. And now she's trying to, lecture me on health. Get out of here, which I understand. That would be very frustrating and annoying as a parent, I'm sure.
Yeah, totally.
But now that everyone else is backing me up, it's like, okay. So I think there's a lot of people like my dad where, now he's sending me reels on Instagram about, Olipop versus Coca-Cola or whatever. Like, is this true? So he's asking questions and all of that. So it's planting a seed. This whole election cycle has planted a seed. And that's important to take it now and run with it and make sure that we keep talking about this in public discourse, because there are people with open ears around us.
Yeah, I like that idea of planting a seed, because it's different than trying to till a whole garden and, change everything up. I imagine you still have friends in the politics or the pop culture world who are not that interested in that, but little by little, with the things you're doing and the changes you're making, they must have some piqued curiosity.
Yes, and you taught me something too, is that every episode you do or every time you talk about this, it may not land with somebody, but it's going to take one unique person to tell the same story and give the same facts that all of a sudden, for whatever reason, it could be the style of the way they talk or, anything that resonates with somebody that finally clicks and then they're bought in. So I will have people that complain about me doing all this health stuff and say, I'm tired of this. I wish you would go back to pop culture. And then 2 months later, they message me, the same person. I can scroll up and see the previous message where they were complaining. And then they say, okay, this episode finally convinced me. Now I'm ready to learn.
Wow.
So you never know when that's going to happen, when that transformational moment is going to happen for somebody.
Now I'm curious, as we start to wrap up, you must have your share of naysayers too, who like your dad are like, who is this girl? She's not a doctor. Why is she talking about health?
Well, I am not. You're right. I am not a doctor. I'm not an expert. I am just a podcaster. I am just a young millennial asking questions because I was experimented on without my consent as a child by the United States government, by our 3-letter agencies, and I want somebody held accountable. I want to see an America where it is possible for me to raise healthy kids and not be threatened to have them taken away for doing so. I want my friends to have that opportunity and my friends' kids who I deeply care about.
And lest people think you're speaking in hyperbole right now, did you know that at this very conference, we're at this Wise Traditions conference in Orlando, Florida, there were some providers of raw milk and raw cheese and some ferments, and they were told that they couldn't sell them. They actually couldn't even give them away in the hotel. I mean, it's weird because they're actually USDA approved. They're following Florida laws. It's the hotel. So it's not just the government. I would say it's just different powers that be that feel threatened by these different choices.
they feel threatened. They're scared of what the unknown is. And so that's our job. Those that listen to Wise Traditions, you guys are the mouthpieces to go into your individual communities and make these things normal. Eventually, and I believe that day is very soon, if not now, this is the moment to make people realize this is completely a completely normal way to live. It's just a different way to live. But some people do this and some people do this. We are really not the outsiders. And by the way, very soon, we are going to be the people that, that people are coming to asking for help because they're just going to continue to decline and get sicker and sicker. But as far as me being the expert in all this, when I spoke at the Senate, I actually tried to get out of it really hard because that was exactly my point is I was terrified to do that because I'm not an expert. Everybody was like a Harvard, Stanford medical doctor or longtime food activists like Vani Hari, the food babe.
I know.
Lots of experience. I have none, but what I do is ask the questions. So I am on this journey for the first time, like much of my audience, and I am having experts on like Hilda, like different pediatricians or psychiatrists or whatever, because we're focusing on my show to heal a sick culture. Every guest has their own remedy to heal a sick culture, and that could be physically, mentally, or spiritually. So health and wellness is a very broad spectrum. There's a lot to cover. There's a lot of ground to cover within that. But yeah, I am just the middleman. I'm just asking the questions that I think women my age who are typically starting families for the first time want to know about health and wellness.
I love it so much. That's something we have in common. We're both curious and willing to challenge the status quo because we want better for ourselves, for our family, for our nation, and the world. So now I want to pose to you the question I like to pose at the end of the show. If the listener, Alex, could just do one thing to improve their health, take one step in a happier, healthier direction, what would you recommend that they do?
I am obsessed with red light therapy.
Hey.
I think red light therapy is one of the best bonus little things. Like we said earlier, that you don't have to do these things. These are extra. The first step is vitamin D, get outside.
Yes, absolutely.
But supplementing with red light, I think is unbelievable. For me with Hashimoto's, I deal with a lot of inflammation. Inside my body and outside, my joints hurt. I'm physically very tired. I get tired easily. Working out is hard for me, all of that kind of stuff. So with red light therapy, it greatly improves my joint health, my inflammation. It helps with eyesight. It helps with hair growth. And it only takes 10 minutes a day. You could just do it for 10 minutes.
Do you just have one of those little panels?
I have a panel that's probably up to like my waist. And I can just sit in front of it for 10 minutes, drink my bone broth. You can, put your Bible Audible on in the morning. You can listen to that like as you're getting ready for work. Love it. Also, it's so good for sleep. Turning off all of your big lights and then having just red lights on or only beeswax candles lit after the sun sets is really, really big too. So that would be my health tip, is like really taking into consideration your light diet and then incorporating red light in there.
I love it, Alex. Thanks so much for your time today. It's been amazing.
Thank you, Hilda.
Our guest today was Alex Clark. Find her podcast, Culture Apothecary, on your favorite podcast platform. And I am Hilda Labrador, the host and producer of this podcast on behalf of the Weston A. Price Foundation. You can find me at holistichilda.com. And for the transcript for today's podcast episode, visit our website, westonaprice.org, and click on the podcast page. And now for a recent review from Apple Podcasts. Mrs. May, with a lot of numbers after her name, says this: I've been listening for a year, and they get better every year. Mrs. May, thank you for that review. You too can tell us what you think of the show. Go to Apple Podcasts, give us a bunch of stars, and tell people why they should listen too. And thank you so much for listening, my friend. Stay well, and remember to keep your feet on the ground and your face to the sun.
On behalf of the Weston A. Price Foundation, thanks for listening. We have many free resources to support you on your health journey. Visit westonaprice.org to find podcasts, articles, videos, and more. You can also find a local chapter near you for help in finding sources of great food. We invite you to support the Foundation's mission of education, research, and activism by becoming a member. Thanks again, and take care. Wise Traditions is a project of the Weston A. Price Foundation for wise traditions in food, farming, and the healing arts. The content on this podcast is provided for informational purposes only and is not intended to substitute for the advice provided by your doctor or other healthcare professional. It is not intended to be, nor does it constitute healthcare or medical advice.